This specific drawing saved a woman from being locked in a psych ward forever. It looks like a doodle, right? Just a circle and some numbers. But for 24-year-old Susannah Cahalan, this piece of paper was the only evidence that she wasn't crazy. In 2009, Susannah went from a healthy, happy reporter to violent, paranoid, and catatonic in less than a month. Doctors said she was schizophrenic. They said she was bipolar. They were preparing to institutionalize her for life. They were all wrong. Her brain was literally on fire. And nobody knew how to put it out until a doctor asked her to do the one thing she couldn't do. Here is how a $2 sketch solved one of the scariest medical mysteries of the 21st century. To understand the nightmare, you have to understand who Susannah was before the darkness took over. Picture New York City, 2009. Susannah is living the absolute dream. She's 24. She's smart, sharp, and she just landed a massive job as a reporter for the New York Post. She's the kind of person who chases leads at 2 a.m. and thrives on the chaos of the newsroom. She has a new boyfriend, a loving family, and a bright future. On paper, she is the picture of health. But then, the glitches started. It didn't happen all at once. Reality didn't just shatter instantly. It chipped away, piece by piece. It started with bedbugs, or at least she thought it was bedbugs. She wakes up one morning with 2 tiny red marks on her arm. She panics. She calls the exterminator. They find nothing. But Susannah isn't convinced. She becomes obsessed. She sprays toxic chemicals everywhere. She stops sleeping. Looking back, this wasn't an insect problem. This was the first crack in her mind. Then came the lethargy. The brilliant writer who could type 100 words a minute was suddenly staring at her screen, unable to read basic sentences. She described it as a slow-motion fog. She thought she was just tired. Maybe she had the flu. But then, she crashed. A seizure is a terrifying electrical storm in the brain. For Susannah, this was the moment the glitches turned into a total system failure. She's at home. Her body goes rigid. She starts convulsing. Foam at the mouth, eyes rolling back. She wakes up in a hospital, confused, biting her tongue, with no memory of what happened. Now, usually, this is where doctors find the tumor, or the bleed, or the infection. But this is where the real horror begins. Because despite the seizure, every single test comes back normal. MRI? Perfect. CT scan? Clear. Blood work? Immaculate. The doctors are baffled. So they do what humans often do when they can't explain something. They blame the victim. They ask her, "Are you partying too hard? Are you drinking too much? Is it withdrawal?" They stabilize her and send her home. But the Susannah who walked back through that door wasn't Susannah anymore. A stranger had taken her place. Over the next few weeks, her behavior plummeted off a cliff. She started swinging wildly between emotions. One minute she's euphoric, talking a mile a minute. The next she's sobbing under her desk. Then the hallucinations started. She believes she can control time. She watches the news and thinks the anchors are gossiping about her. But the most terrifying symptom was the Capgras delusion. This is straight out of a horror movie. It's a psychiatric condition where you believe a loved one has been replaced by an identical imposter. Imagine looking at your dad, the person you trust most in the world, and being 100% convinced he is a spy wearing your father's face. Susannah screamed at him. She accused him of murder. She tried to jump out of a moving car to escape him. Her family was watching their daughter dissolve right in front of their eyes, and they were helpless. Susannah is finally admitted to the NYU Medical Center. She is now a prisoner in her own body. This begins the diagnostic odyssey, the hell that rare disease patients know too well. The medical team runs $1 million workup. They test for Lyme disease, mono, tuberculosis, West Nile virus. Everything is negative. So the doctors default to the only explanation left: mental illness. The diagnosis shifts daily. Bipolar disorder. Schizoaffective disorder. Psychosis. They stop treating her body and start treating her mind. They pump her full of heavy antipsychotics, Thorazine, Haldol, the stuff that turns you into a zombie. But here is the clue they missed. The drugs didn't work. In fact, she got worse. She stops speaking. She stops eating. She begins making strange, repetitive movements with her mouth, something called grimacing. She is entering a state of catatonia. The lights are on, but nobody is home. One senior doctor looked at her grieving parents and delivered the verdict. She's likely going to need institutional care for the rest of her life. They were preparing the paperwork to transfer her to a permanent psychiatric ward. Susannah was 24 years old, and her life was effectively over. But Susannah had one thing going for her, a father who refused to give up. He knew his daughter wasn't just crazy. He knew something physical was wrong. Enter Dr. Souhel Najjar. Dr. Najjar is different. He's a neurologist, but he thinks like a detective. He walks into Susannah's room. By now, she is strapped to the bed because she's violent. She's drooling. She is barely human. Most doctors looked at her chart. Dr. Najjar looked at her. He sat down and listened to the timeline. The bedbugs, the flu-like symptoms, the seizures. He put the pieces together. He suspected that this wasn't a mind problem. This was a brain problem. He suspected inflammation, but he needed proof, and he needed it fast because Susannah was dying. He didn't order another MRI. He didn't draw more blood. He pulled out a blank sheet of paper and a pen. He looked at Susannah and said, "Susannah, draw me a clock." It sounds ridiculous. A toddler can draw a clock. How could this diagnose a complex brain disease? Susannah took the pen. Her hand was shaking. She focused with whatever was left of her consciousness. She drew a circle. She started writing the numbers. 1, 2, 3. When she handed the paper back, Dr. Najjar knew instantly that he had solved the case. The circle was there. But look at the numbers. The numbers 1 through 12 were all squashed onto the right side of the clock. The left side was completely empty. To an untrained eye, it looked like a bad doodle. To Dr. Najjar, it was a smoking gun. This proved she wasn't crazy. This was visual spatial neglect. It meant the right hemisphere of her brain was inflamed and failing. The right side of the brain controls the left field of vision. She literally couldn't see or process the left side of reality. This was physical evidence of brain damage. Dr. Najjar rushed out of the room and told her parents, "Her brain is on fire. I think I can fix it." So, what was eating Susannah's brain? Tests confirmed it was a disease called Anti-NMDA Receptor Encephalitis. Let's break that down. NMDA receptors are tiny ports in your brain that control learning, memory, and behavior. They make you, you. Susannah's body had launched a massive civil war. Her immune system got confused. It identified her own brain receptors as the enemy. It was producing antibodies specifically designed to seek out and destroy the parts of her brain that control reality. It wasn't demons. It wasn't schizophrenia. It was her own body turning against her. And here is the scariest part. This disease was only discovered in 2007. Susannah got sick in 2009. If she had fallen ill just 2 years earlier, she would have been locked away in a psych ward until she died, misdiagnosed and alone. The good news? It was treatable. They scrubbed her blood of the bad antibodies. They used steroids and immunotherapy. Recovery was a slow, painful climb out of the abyss. She had to relearn how to speak, how to walk. She lost a month of her life. To this day, she remembers nothing of the hospital. But slowly, the reporter came back. One of the most powerful moments was when she watched the videotapes of herself in the hospital, growling, flailing, looking possessed. She didn't recognize that girl, but she knew she had survived her. Susannah Cahalan wrote a best-selling book called Brain on Fire. But her story is more than just a memoir. It's a warning. It forces us to ask, throughout history, how many people were locked away in asylums? How many were labeled possessed or hysterical when they were actually suffering from a treatable autoimmune condition? Experts now believe that a significant number of people diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder might actually have this disease. How many people are sitting in psych wards right now, waiting for someone to simply ask them to draw a clock? Susannah's story reminds us that the human brain is fragile, and sometimes the difference between insanity and a cure is just a matter of looking closer. If you found this story fascinating, hit that like button and subscribe for more medical mysteries. See you in the next one.